As she was looking at her reflection, she felt a strange sensation. Her body began to change, and her limbs growing and straightening. She transformed into a stunning, beautiful maiden. The villagers gasped in awe as Nkem stepped out. In a quiet village of Umuago, nestled among the rolling hills and dense forests of Igbo land, a miracle occurred. Nneka, the wife of a humble farmer named Chike, gave birth to twin girls. The news spread like wildfire, and the villagers gathered to witness this rare blessing. The first twin, Adaeze, emerged healthy and beautiful, her eyes strong and vibrant. The second twin, Inkim, followed shortly, but she was different. Inkim was small, frail, and her limbs were stunted. The midwives exchanged glances, but Nneka and Chike's hearts overflowed with love for their precious daughters. As the villagers cooed over Adaeze's beauty, they whispered about Nkem. Some pitied her, while others laughed and mocked. Despite the chatter, Nneka and Chike vowed to raise their daughters with equal love and care. The years passed, and the twins grew, but the difference between them became more pronounced. Adaeze blossomed into a stunning young lady with vibrant skin and graceful features. She became the pride of Umuago, admired by all. Inkem, on the other hand, remained small and stunted. She often stumbled and struggled to keep up with other children. Despite her challenges, Inkem had a heart full of kindness and a spirit that shone brightly. Adaeze's beauty brought her attention and praise, which she basked in. However, this admiration fed her pride and vanity. She began to look down on her sister, treating Nkem with disdain and cruelty. One sunny afternoon, the villagers gathered for an annual yam festival. The children played and danced, their laughter echoing through the village square. Adaeze, adorned with a bright, colorful dress, was the center of attention. Nkem watched from the sidelines, her eyes filled with longing. As Adaeze danced, she caught sight of Nkem standing alone. A wicked idea crossed her mind. She beckoned to Nkem, calling her to join the dance. Instantly, Nkem stepped forward, her awkward movements contrasting sharply with Adaeze's grace. The villagers began to laugh and jeer, pointing at Nkem's clumsy steps. Adaeze smirked, enjoying the spectacle. Humiliated, Nkem ran off, tears streaming down her face. She fled to the edge of the forest, seeking solace among the trees. Nkem found comfort in the forest, where she often escaped from the harshness of the village. The trees seemed to welcome her, their branches swaying gently as if in sympathy. She would sit by the river, watching the water flow and dreaming of a different life. One day, as Nkem sat by the river, she heard a rustling in the bushes. An old woman emerged, her hair white as snow, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. Nkem, startled, rose to her feet. "Do not be afraid, my child," the old woman said, her voice soothing. "I have been watching you. You have a kind heart and a pure spirit." Nkem wiped her tears and nodded. "Thank you, grandmother. But I am mocked and scorned by everyone. Even my sister treats me cruelly." The old woman smiled kindly. "Remember, child, the gods see all. Your kindness and patience will be rewarded. Do not lose hope." News of Prince Obina's visit spread quickly through Umuago. The prince, known for his bravery and kindness, was traveling the land to find a bride. The villagers buzzed with excitement, hoping he would choose one of their own. Adaeze saw this as an opportunity to rise to greatness. She spent hours preparing, dressing in her finest clothes and adorning herself with beads and jewelries. Her parents watched with pride, convinced that their beautiful daughter would capture the prince's heart. Nkem, however, remained in the shadows, her heart filled with sadness. She knew that no matter how kind and gentle she was, the villagers only saw her outward appearance. The day of the prince's arrival dawned bright and clear. The village square was decorated with beautiful fabrics and flowers. The villagers gathered, their faces filled with anticipation. Prince Obina arrived in a majestic horse. His presence commanded respect. He dismounted and greeted the villagers with warmth and humility. As he walked through the crowd, his eyes scanned the faces, searching for something beyond physical beauty. When he reached Adaeze, she curtsied gracefully, flashing her brightest smile. "Welcome, Prince Obina. I am Adaeze." The prince smiled politely, but felt no spark in his heart. He continued to greet the villagers until he noticed a small figure standing at the edge of the crowd. It was Nkem, her eyes filled with both hope and fear. Curious, Prince Obina approached her.
And who might you be?
Nkem bowed her head. "I am Nkem, your highness." The prince sensed the depth of her spirit and the kindness in her eyes. He smiled warmly. "It is a pleasure to meet you, Nkem." The village celebrated the prince's visit with a grand feast. Adaeze continued to vie for his attention, but Prince Obina's thoughts kept returning to Nkem. He observed her from a distance, noticing her gentle demeanor and the way she treated everyone with kindness. As the evening progressed, the prince decided to take a walk. He found Nkem sitting alone by the river, lost in thought. He approached her quietly, not wanting to startle her.
Nkem,
He called softly. She looked up, surprised to see the prince. "Your Highness, what are you doing here?" Prince smiled.
I want to get to know you better. May I sit with you?
Nkem nodded, and the prince sat with her. They talked for hours, sharing stories and dreams. The prince was so captivated by Nkem's wisdom and her resilient spirit. Adaeze watched from a distance, sitting with jealousy. She had always been the center of attention, and now the prince was spending time with her sister. She couldn't understand why he was drawn to Nkem. Determined to regain her position, Adaeze devised a plan to humiliate Nkem. She would show to the prince that her sister was unworthy of his attention. The next day, Adaeze gathered a group of villagers and whispered her plans. They would create a situation that would embarrass Nkem in front of the prince. The villagers, eager for entertainment, agreed to help. That evening, as the village gathered for another celebration, Adaeze put her plan into action. She convinced Nkem to join the festivities, assuring her that everyone wanted her there. Reluctantly, Nkem agreed. She dressed in her simple clothes and joined the crowd, her heart pounding with anxiety. The villagers played their parts well. As Nkem walked through the crowd, they began to snicker and whisper. Adaeze, with a malicious smile, stepped forward. "Look at her," Adaeze sneered. "She thinks she belongs here." The villagers laughed, and Nkem's face turned red with shame. She felt tears welling up in her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. Prince Obina, who had been observing from a distance, stepped forward.
Enough!
he commanded, his voice firm and authoritative. The crowd fell silent, and Adaeze's smile faded. The prince approached Nkem, his eyes filled with compassion.
Nkem, come with me.
He said gently. Prince Obina led Nkem away from the crowd, his arm protectively around her shoulders. They walked in silence until they reached the edge of the forest.
Why did they treat you this way?
The prince asked, his voice filled with concern. Nkem sighed. Because I am different. I am not beautiful like my sister. The prince shook his head.
Beauty is not only on the outside, Nkem. Your kindness and strength make you truly beautiful.
Nkem looked up at Prince Obina, her eyes shining with gratitude. Thank you, Your Highness. As they sat by the river, Prince Obina shared a secret with Nkem.
I am not just looking for a bride. I am looking for someone with a kind heart and a pure spirit. Someone who can see beyond appearance.
Nkem listened intensely, her heart filled with hope. And have you found that person, Your Highness? The prince smiled.
I believe I have.
Nkem's eyes widened in surprise. But I am just a simple girl. Prince Obina shook his head.
You are more than that, Nkem. You have a rare and precious gift. The gods have blessed you.
Prince Obina's words gave Nkem a newfound sense of confidence. She realized that her worth was not determined by her appearance, but by her character. The next day, Prince Obina announced that he had made his decision. The villagers gathered in the square, eager to hear his voice.
I have traveled far and wide, searching for a bride,
The prince began.
and I have found someone with a heart full of kindness and a spirit that shines brightly.
Adaeze stepped forward, confident that she was the chosen one. But to her shock, the prince turned to Nkem. Nkem, will you do me the honor of becoming my wife? He asked, his eyes filled with sincerity. The village erupted in shock and disbelief. Adaeze's face turned red with anger and humiliation. This cannot be, she shouted. She is not worthy. Prince Obina raised his hand, silencing the crowd.
Inkim is more than worthy. She possesses quality that goes beyond physical beauty. She has a heart of gold.
Nkem, overwhelmed with emotion, nodded. Yes, Your Highness, I will. The prince smiled and took Nkem's hand, sealing their bond. The news of Nkem's engagement with Prince Obina spread quickly. The villagers were divided. Some were happy for her, while others remained skeptical. One night, as Nkem slept, she had a dream. The old woman from the forest appeared before her, her eyes twinkling with wisdom. You have been chosen, Inkim, the old woman said. The gods have seen your kindness and have blessed you. Nkem woke up with a sense of peace and purpose. She knew that her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. On the day of her wedding, Nkem stood before the mirror, dressed in a beautiful gown. As she was looking at her reflection, she felt a strange sensation. Her body began to change, and her limbs growing and straightening. She transformed into a stunning, beautiful maiden. The villagers gasped in awe as Nkem stepped out, her new appearance radiating beauty and grace. Prince Obina, though surprised, smiled warmly.
The gods have truly blessed you, Nkem.
Adaeze's jealousy reached its peak. She could not accept that her sister had not only captured the prince's heart, but had also transformed into a beauty. In a fit of rage, she stormed out of the village, vowing to find a way to reclaim her status. She traveled to the shrine of a powerful sorcerer, hoping to gain the same beauty and power as Nkem. The sorcerer, sensing Adaeze's greed and malice, agreed to help her, but at a great cost. The sorcerer demanded a piece of Adaeze's soul in exchange for this transformation. Blinded by her desire, Adaeze agreed without hesitation. The sorcerer chanted ancient spells, and Adaeze felt her body changing, her beauty surpassing even that of Nkem's. But with her new beauty came a darkness that consumed her. Adaeze's heart grew colder, and her actions more wicked. She returned to the village, determined to destroy her sister. Adaeze confronted Nkem, her eyes filled with hatred. You may have won the prince's heart, but I will take everything from you. Nkem, though saddened by her sister's transformation, stood her ground. Adaeze, your beauty means nothing if your heart is filled with darkness. The villagers watched in fear as the sisters faced each other. Prince Obina stepped forward, trying to reason with Adaeze, but she was beyond reach. In her rage, Adaeze unleashed a curse upon the village, bringing misery and suffering to the people. Crops withered, and the rivers dried up. The villagers, realizing the extent of Adaeze's wickedness, turned against her. Desperate to save her people, Inkim prayed to the gods for help. The old woman from the forest appeared once again, her eyes filled with sorrow. The gods have heard your plea, Nkem, she said. But to lift the curse, a great sacrifice must be made. Nkem knew what she had to do. She approached Prince Obina, her heart heavy with the weight of her decision. I must leave, Your Highness. To save our people, I must make a great sacrifice. The prince's eyes filled with tears. Nkem, you have already given so much. There must be another way. Nkem shook her head. This is the only way. I must return to the forest and give myself to the gods. With a heavy heart, Nkem said her goodbyes to the prince and the villagers. She walked to the edge of the forest, where the old woman awaited her. Are you ready, child? The old woman asked. Nkem nodded. Yes, I am ready. The old woman placed her hand on Nkem's forehead, and a bright light enveloped her. The forest seemed to come alive, the trees swaying, and the river flowing once more. As Nkem's sacrifice took effect, the curse was lifted. The villagers watched in awe as the crops began to grow, and the rivers filled with water. The land flourished even more, and the people rejoiced. Prince Obina, though heartbroken, knew that Nkem's sacrifice had saved them all. He vowed to honor her memory and continue her legacy of kindness and compassion. Adaeze, realizing the extent of her actions, was consumed by guilt. The sorcerer's curse had taken its toll, and her beauty began to fade. The villagers, now aware of her true nature, shunned her. She wandered the land, searching for redemption, but found none. Her heart, once filled with pride and malice, was now empty and broken. Years passed, and one day, a young girl arrived in Umuago. She bore a striking resemblance to Nkem, with the same kind eyes and gentle spirit. The villagers welcomed her, believing that Nkem's spirit had returned to guide them. The end. Thank you guys for watching. Please support this small channel by liking this video and hit the subscribe button for more interesting stories like this.